have to say that's so sick.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
do you mind me asking? Because I'm 33 and Need for Speed.
Me too.
Are you really?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like Need for Speed. This is like
Yes,
such a
right?
huge part of our childhood. Yeah. My name is Bliss Foster. I'm a fashion critic and I attended Berlin Fashion Week. Stick around to the end for the single weirdest thing that I have ever experienced at any fashion week ever. Okay, no waffling. Let's get into the clothes. We'll begin with the single most insane show of the season. I'm gonna let the artist speak for herself, but the gist of this show was that a few very complex looks took the runway and through extensive work from the artist herself were transformed live on the catwalk, some in small ways while others were changed completely. We talked about it a lot in this interview and I couldn't just have the few pieces that I included here, so if you would like to see the full interview, which is incredible, it's on the Patreon now.
My name is Irina Juice and the brand is called Juice. The collection symbolizes the trauma Ukrainian women have been experiencing during the evacuation, or those who decided to stay with their families, those who lost everything and are actually facing new reality and don't know what is awaiting for them in the reality. As you might have noticed, there were many bags in the collection which transform into something else. So I wanted to say with this that people were taking things that they could carry actually.
To me, this struck me as an extremely unique show because it involved you, the designer, directly on the runway, doing a great deal of work live in the show, which I'm not sure I've ever seen a designer do. Could you just tell us a little bit about that experience generally of actually being on the runway during the time when the show is going on?
Actually, I hate being in public. It's not my thing, but our garments are so complicated in transformation. I just technically wouldn't have any time to teach so many people, for example, our models, to transform those outfits or each other's outfits. That's why I just decided to do that by myself. That's why before every show I'm just dreaming of it to finish. That's my only desire, and now it's finished.
Can you talk a little bit about the transforming nature of what was going on?
I'm very much inspired by the hidden potential of pattern making actually. The shapes of my designs are actually the result of the fulfilling the functional potential of certain constructions, which I feel should be developed.
One final tidbit about this brand is that these clothes are manufactured and they do sell. I'm really looking forward to following more that Juice has to offer in the future. Next up, we headed across town to see Litkowska, a Ukrainian brand that I fell in love with about 6 months ago. We all gathered in what appeared to be a bunker, which served as an incredible acoustic environment, but I won't spoil anything just yet.
My name is Lilia Litkovska. I'm Ukrainian designer.
And this show was incredibly impactful. The music was wonderful. The clothes were very beautiful. Could you just tell us a little bit about what the starting ideas were for this collection?
The main ideas and these ideas embellished singers. This is traditional folk band. This is a traditional folk band who sung like an ancient spring song and ask, please spring come, please spring alive, everything surrounding us.
Were there any changes in the way that you approached the design of the clothes themselves that were perhaps a form of protest or perhaps speaking about the circumstances, or are the clothes separate from your feelings about what is happening in Ukraine?
Big part of the collection has the prayer. It's like a prayer of our Mariupol defenders. It names Azov prayer who defend the Mariupol at the first months of the war. And many things, many garments has this prayer. Black on black, white on white. Maybe you can't see at first touch, but 50% of this collection has this embroidered prayer. And many things handmade.
Are they handmade in Ukraine now?
Ukraine. Yeah, everything based, not everything, the production, my big team, based in Kyiv, sometimes without electricity, without heating, without water. I would like to say our culture, our roots, our nature can't be stolen.
My name is Jörg Ehrlich. I'm one of the founders of Odeeh. Odeeh is a brand. We founded 14 years ago. You started with Chloe in Paris, with Karl Lagerfeld when you did Chloe. We met at Escada. So we worked in very big companies and big structures. And the idea of Odeeh is and was and still is to work in a smaller structure and to focus on a manufactural energy more than an industrial energy. So everything we do is kind of in a positive way old school, designed and produced. We work a lot in Germany, we do a lot in Europe still. Fabrics all come from Italy, so it's for us it's a very high principle to really work with the best manufacturers in Italy and in Germany and so on.
And as far as the kind of old school way of doing things, what does that mean from a manufacturing standpoint?
Everything is drawn by hand. We have a lot of hand working in the collection, a lot of double fass, which is totally hand done. And
So what about this collection in particular?
playful, colorful collection. The tailored part is a new chapter. What we are very famous for is this mix of prints, of patterns, of structures. On the one side you have these very clean looks and like almost Savile sartoriale done, and then on the other side you have this flamboyant mix of patterns, of prints, of structures.
I'm seeing French shoulders like
Yes,
right away, which
exactly.
I mean, usually when brands jump into tailoring, they just say, just whatever with the shoulder,
No.
and there's no thought. But here it's very structured.
Yeah. Men's tailoring is a very good school because you learn to look in a millimeter dimension. Women's wear, you can a little hide things, because silhouettes are changing more and bigger. In the men's business, it's different if you do the shoulder 12.5 millimeters or 12.8 millimeters.
And all of these textiles, none of them were selected from the textile manufacturers. All of these were designed by you.
All is exclusive, designed by us. Everything is either designed from scratch by us or we found it in archive books from the 60s. We work a lot with 3 companies in Como, at the Lake Como area. And there's Mantero Seta, there is Gentile Mosconi, and there is Clerici. These are the main companies, and they have incredible archives. So when you go there and you are able and allowed to go to the archives, it's a treasure. I mean, it's wonderland. So you really find beautiful things, and everything is, or not everything, but a lot is founded on this archive thing, but totally transformed and changed and blown up or blown down or whatever.
We moved forward to SF10G, a local Berlin favorite with a show where the details were really easy to miss. We spoke to the 2 founding members for more insights into the processes and ideas behind these runway looks.
Yes, my name is Jacob and I'm the brand manager of SF10G. For example, this is fabric that we used in our last 2 collections. It's old linen fabric that was used for wheat sacks, and we scanned it and did a print material out of it. This is old upcycled garments that we cut in stripes, and we wove them ourselves. Yeah, some upcycled fur from Rosa's grandmother's old fur coats.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, we would never use new fur,
Of course,
but
yeah.
it's really nice to give these existing old materials a new purpose, because most people don't want to wear an old fur coat, but this kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
This, for example, is a piece that we really love, the white leather look. This is also upcycled fur, and the leather is material that was stained. This was the stained leather from a manufacturer. It was a leftover because there's this yellow stain, and we try to use these imperfections to even embellish the garment or the pieces.
And it demonstrates a lot about the manufacturing process. It kind of tells the story of its own creation.
Definitely. And also very interesting about the show are the caps. They're handmade in our studio. We tried to take our version on the typical cap.
On the what now?
On the typical base cap, which was a lot in the trend.
Almost a helmet.
Give it a more like crafted way of doing it.
There was so much here where the manufacturing processes are being shown with the imperfections.
What this leather, for example, it was laying for a long time in a stock of a leather retailer, and it got these stains from sunlight. You can't recreate it because it's so perfect.
It's a beautiful leather. The finish on it's really beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Next up was one of the highlights of the week, a brand called Acceptance Letter Studios.
I'm Jakey. I'm the designer of Acceptance Letter Studio.
Can you tell me a little bit about this collection specifically?
So I was inspired by a 1970s bathhouse/club in New York City called the Continental Bath. And I wanted to take that queer joy, not so much of queer sex itself, but more the joy part, and inject that into clothing. The moments of undressing, that half-worn, this cheeky sexiness, and I wanted to bring that in different jerseys, different cuts you can open up, and also like the real-life people. Like a lot of the people I work with are friends. They're not models, but they're active, creative queer members of the city. So I wanted to keep that as such.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the brand does overall and kind of how this show here relates to those themes?
I'm very tired of seeing people like me or people in my community being seen as this cool, subversive people. I think we can be in the center and we can be the classic. What I was told in school and work experience as the ultimate standard of beauty, how it should be within fashion context, I'm trying to switch that around and do it on my own terms.
And here, I think Jakey has set up a distinctive look that can be expounded out a great deal in the future. But more importantly, they've established an idea that has a ton of potential here. It's this sort of unsexy sexiness, the casual states of undress, and touchstones of gay culture from the perspective of this has become the classic standard. I'm actually really excited to see how Jakey develops this in the future. I like this show a lot. We returned back to our home base in Berlin for another local favorite, Namilia. Their popularity has rolled all the way across the ocean. They used to show at New York Fashion Week and have switched their headquarters to Berlin. We got to speak to one of the designers, Nan, who filled us in on the collection.
I'm Nan, I'm the designer of Namilia, and this is our Fall/Winter 23 runway show.
Tell me a little bit about this one in particular. Where did the inspiration, the ideas, the shapes come from?
Yes, so the inspirational text was Cruising Utopia, and it's about kind of our version of a queer future. We think we're not there yet, there's still so much to do, and this was kind of our fantasy future world of our warriors. It's about empowerment, sex positivity, rebellion. We quote a lot of youth cultures, and for our clothing is supposed to make you feel like your own superhero. And as well, this time we had a collaboration with Need for Speed, the racing game, where we have an in-game character that you can dress, but we also produce the clothing for real life, so you can be...
Wait, in the game?
In the game you have the clothes, and you can have them in real life as well.
I have to say that's so sick.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
do you mind me asking, because I'm 33 and Need for Speed...
Me too.
Are you really?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, Need for Speed, this is
Yes,
such a
right?
huge part of our childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's incredible, that's so cool. We then proceeded to enter the single coolest space of the week for the Sia Arnica show. I'm guessing this location is used as an archive of some kind, but there was absolutely nothing being stored there at the time of the show. I've never been in an archive storage facility that isn't archiving anything, and even the floors were helping to give this kind of horror-twinged feeling to the space. Sia included some great show notes, and we'll read those here. Sia Arnica, Autumn/Winter 23. A memory of a childhood playing witches with my friends, putting spells on boys we liked, watching the snow fall, walking onto the ice summoning the winter witch. Nordic mysticism and old folk tales are merged with hardcore futurism for Sia Arnica Autumn/Winter 23. Themes which have been explored since the brand's inception. Researching draperies with a Renaissance approach to textiles are given the sci-fi treatment with the support of Circulose, using a new narrative of sustainability to investigate current cultural developments alongside traditional stories. An exploration of two opposing forces which exist within the same universe. It's a space for expressing both minimalism and maximalism. Welcome to Sia Arnica's experimental normality. Next up was a brand called Malaika Rice, who, very unexpectedly, had a show presenting bridal looks, complete with a series of elaborate cakes and a piece of the terrazza landscape sofas by Ubald Klug. Klug? I'm honestly not sure. I'm not a big furniture guy. Either way, it all looked extremely cool. It seems like so many young brides look at the photos of their parents' weddings and think, this looks incredibly outdated. I don't want my photos to look this way in 20 years. So their mission becomes, I'm gonna make everything, especially my dress, as neutral as possible. And that mission might help to make the outfit look a little bit more timeless, but it inadvertently robs the dress of this hypothetical bride of any personality. Malaika Rice steps in with these proposals for a bride that add bold flair to a wedding, but it doesn't succumb to any trends that at least I'm aware of, which is always a very difficult task. I really like these a lot, and I really hope some brides pick these up. They're really cool. Okay, so we made our way across town to one of the most bizarre settings that we'd seen all week for the new show by Debitoli. Everything from the building itself, which, again, just the building itself had a very prom queen who's hiding a dark secret feel to it, to the name of the building, to the long stretch of pitch black darkness that they put us in before the show, down to even the path that the models walked. Everything about the setting for this show had that something looms behind the corner vibe to it. The clothes this season had some really great highlights as well, from really simple ideas like this great idea for a crop top shape to more complex pieces like this Balenciaga tribute that looked as if it was made 30 years ago and stored flat so all the techniques had been squished down. Another big highlights were these mini skirts that had been poofed out a ton, giving the skirt a nod to the old world of clothes while keeping the look modern overall with the slinky crop tops. Okay, hi, it's me, Bliss. Normally we just do voiceovers for this, but I need to be here and present with you so that I can tell you about the single weirdest thing that I have ever experienced at any fashion week in my life. So for context here, we had just landed in Berlin. We were still very jet lagged. We had seen no events so far, and we were guided into a room where clearly a runway show was going to happen, but we were handed a slip of paper that had a lot of things on it about like, this is a legally binding and enforceable agreement signed with trade unions and suppliers and Adidas. They promise severance for workers whose factories are being closed. They promise ensuring workers' rights to collective bargaining, which just means unions, which Adidas does not like. Basically, they're saying that all of the labor abuse stuff that they've been doing for the entirety of the company's history is going to stop in a really big, specific way. We were then joined by a man with a mic who introduced himself. Roll clip.
Tonight, my name is Buddy Blatnick. I'm a senior creative director for Adidas.
So basically, he explained that Adidas had committed many wrongdoings and that they were going to correct them. He then introduced a woman who he said was the new co-CEO of Adidas, a former sweatshop employee and labor abuse whistleblower. It is now that I was getting very wary of what I was seeing. I mean, if Adidas was actually intending on doing this, why was this the official announcement? Like, had I missed some major PR thing? My whole timeline on all of my social media is just fashion news stuff. If this wasn't the first time that Adidas was bringing this up, I would know about it. But then the dark realization began to make itself clear in my mind. Adidas must be sponsoring Berlin Fashion Week. And as a journalist, I'm expected to praise Adidas for promising to do all of this stuff that they haven't even done yet, and that I personally doubt completely that they will do at all. I started to feel sorry for this poor woman whose horrible life experience and now her face was being used as part of a PR stunt. I mean, her face, like, they gave out coupons. Her face is on the coupon. They're claiming this is enforceable. It's enforceable by who? I noticed that I was being photographed a lot at this event by people who looked like they worked for Adidas, and I began to worry that my just being there was going to be some kind of approval of what Adidas was doing here. It was the only time in a runway show where I seriously considered standing and walking out in the middle of it. And now, I present to you the single strangest thing that I have ever witnessed at a runway show. Roll clip. They proceeded to play out a runway show of the most out-of-touch, celebrity-endorsed drivel that I have ever witnessed. If this was meant to be Adidas owning mistakes and apologizing, it was the most condescending, offensive apology of all time. Like, in case you missed that a second ago, that was supposed to be factory worker, like, enforcers branding, like the way that you would brand an animal, branding a sweatshop employee with the Adidas logo. There were more fake sweatshop employees limping down the runway wearing distressed, like destroyed Adidas clothes. Someone wearing a jacket that said wage theft who was throwing fake euros into the crowd. There was another person handing out those coupons that I mentioned earlier. I wish that I could play you the parts of this where the guy on the mic is announcing things, but there's music playing over it, and for copyright reasons I can't play it. But like, it is the most like reading off a script voice of all time. The next look is called Barely Legal Working Conditions, produced by Bad Bunny. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention this. All of the looks were designed by Bad Bunny and Pharrell Williams. So yeah, that's an incredible way to pay respect to people who have, some of whom have just died. Just in case someone is not aware, when we talk about like bad labor conditions, we're talking about people dying. There have been factory floors where the roof has collapsed, the workers have died, and then just nothing happens. It's like, okay, clean the mess up and get to making sweaters again. This entire thing felt like it was some charity event run by the rich people from the Hunger Games. It was gross. The entire way through, it was just gross. So it wasn't until this event was completely done and me and all the other journalists are back on the bus when we were informed that this entire event was fake. It was a performance piece by activist artist duo, which is called Yes Men, one of whom was the dude speaking on the mic. They were raising awareness about labor abuse, specifically at Adidas, obviously. I'm gonna be real with everybody. This fooled me completely. Partly because your boy is just really gullible, but also because when you're there in the room experiencing the thing, this really seemed like something that a massive company would just do in the worst possible, most offensive way. The idea itself was just out of touch enough to be a real legendarily bad move from a massive company. Adidas corporate actually had to release a statement saying that this was not a real Adidas event, which is incredible. So fuck fast fashion, go buy your clothes secondhand or support brands that don't do shit like this. Especially if you're just buying clothes for fun, just skip on them. You don't need it. And that's it. That's my story. This is my first time at a fashion week that wasn't part of the big four fashion weeks, and I was really surprised at the talent they've been able to cultivate there. My number one priority when I go to any fashion week is to find designers that I have never heard of before who I can follow closely moving forward, and that goal was met many times over this week. Stay tuned. We're in the busiest time of the year for fashion weeks. We'll be back with more fashion week content literally here in just a few weeks.